Nurses, who is the patient that you will remember for the rest of your life? It was Saturday morning, and I had just endured 2 days of operating room hell with an arrogant, narcissistic surgeon who had made multiple mistakes during the surgery. I was mentally and physically exhausted, and only wanted to stay at home with my kids and make pancakes. But, the call came at 9:30 in the morning. I was working the cardiac operating room call shift, and it was for an emergency return to surgery patient. It was a terribly congested stormy Saturday morning drive to get to the hospital, and traffic was slow. The surgeon was more than pissed, and doing his best to rush everyone into the operating room. The patient, I discovered, was the survivor of the operation from hell that I had worked on for the last 2 days. The patient was a young man named Rob, early 30s, with a congenital heart valve defect. The previous surgery, on Thursday, had been to replace the valve. Rob had had several heart issues. His mother was his ultimate strength and support throughout his life. It had been a sudden decision that day to return to surgery due to declining status, so I understood why the surgeon was in a hurry. It was the same surgeon who had messed up the first surgery, and I didn't feel optimistic about his ability to fix his mistake. Rob's family lived farther away than me and, with the heavy traffic, had not yet seen or talked to their son. He was anxious. I saw that he really needed extra support. The practice was for the circulating nurse to do the final patient interview just prior to entering the operating room, right outside the double doors. This is where the nurse ensures that this is the correct patient for the correct procedure, correct site marked, consent signed, allergies checked. We did all that. I knew Rob from Thursday, and he remembered me. After the required questions, Rob hesitated, and gripped my hand. "Do you have a son?" he asked. "Why yes," I smiled. "I have 2 sons. At this point, my face mask was down. I could see his deep brown eyes, and he could see my intent green eyes. "Did you hug them this morning?" "Of course I did." I paused. I remembered Rob's family. I knew that they were not there today. "Would you like a hug?" And he nodded. He whispered how much he loved how his mom would hug him, and stroke his hair. I stroked his hair. He told me the song she sang. I sang it for him. He joined in a croaking, yet moving voice. The resident poked his head out of the operating room and told me if that patient was not in the room in 3 seconds the surgeon was going to write me up. I respectfully told the resident to give him a pen and paper, if he needed it. The new resident gulped and withdrew. All this had taken 2 minutes by the clock. If the patient could talk this well, and with this lucidity, he had enough oxygen with his nasal cannula, and was entirely within his rights of consent. Rob told me his favorite prayer. We said it. He told me to remember to hug my sons every day. I promised I would. He asked if the sun was shining today and I told him about the miserable rainstorm that was holding up traffic, holding up his parents. Then he looked up towards the ceiling, as if he was looking into the sky at God, and a bittersweet smile crept across his face. "Well, there's my answer. Mom and Dad aren't supposed to be here. We can go in now." The moment he said that I knew. Once again, I stopped the anesthesia resident from moving the gurney forward. I looked into Rob's unfathomable eyes. Took a deep breath, and a leap of faith. "What do you want me to tell your mom?" I asked. He nodded, gave me a smile. His eyes now sparkled, and he looked at peace. "That she is the best mom ever. And I'll wait for her." I let Rob see the tears in my eyes. "I'll find a way," I managed to say without the waver my soul felt. Then I lifted my face mask and gave him a thumbs up. We went into the operating room and the surgeon let out a string of expletives before the patient was even transferred to the table. I gave him the look that my residents and children feared. This surgeon pretended not to notice. I held Rob's hand as anesthesia was induced. He worried that I was in trouble. "No," I assured him. "You just think of your mom now. I've got you." We held eye contact until he was peacefully sleeping. 4.5 grueling hours later, Rob passed away on the table. The surgeon blamed me for taking so long outside the doors. He burst out of the room, in complete rage. 20 minutes later, I went to the family room. It was not in my job description, nor expected, nor the norm. I was uncertain to step out of my professional boundaries. But, Rob and I had history. Mom, Dad, and brother were there, quietly grieving, quietly blaming themselves for not being there. This was not right. Quietly, I asked permission to talk with them. I told them that I was the nurse who took Rob to surgery, today, and on Thursday. Would they like to know what he said? It was like I gave them the moon. I told them how we talked about sons, and hugs, and how much Rob had loved his mother's hugs and how I'd stroked his hair, as he had described how his mom did for him when he was worried. I told them about Rob's favorite song, and how great he was with those low notes. I recited the prayer. And then I told Mom that Rob had a message for her, how much he loved and appreciated her, and that he would wait for her. And, I hope they didn't mind, but I hugged Rob for them. The family was overwhelmed, tearful, happy, sad, incoherent, and in a jumbled up fashion revealed that I had given them the next best thing to saying goodbye to their son. They told me they weren't sure if they could have handled that at all. What does a parent say to a son, when you want to give hope, but both sides just know there is none? So Rob was right. I was right. The surgeon was pissed off and wrote me up. The family wrote such letters of commendation for me that I didn't get into trouble. The surgeon did. That surgeon was not allowed to operate without senior staff to supervise, for a long time. I worked in the operating room for many years, and always taught new staff members to never hurry a patient into the operating room if they have something to say. It could be the last chance they get to leave a message for their family.